Allora, passo alle presentazioni.
So presentations. Well, in introduction, this press conference has been moved in this moment, so excuse me for this. These are all short films from the Orizzonti section. These are the survivors of the program from last Thursday. We have Yuri Ancarani for Piattaforma and for Miss Candace Hilligoss Flickering. We have Fabio Scacchioli, Vincenzo. Both films are a good example of what we are interested in for Italian films. Films that do not seem to the traditional Italian style in short films, especially. The film by Vincenzo and Fabio is a film that seems coming from other traditions. From the 50s, for example, we could not think about the winner of the Short Film Award of last year as a sort of inspiration for your film, and on the other hand, the film by Yuri Ancarani we presented. By Yuri Ancarani we presented last year the film Il Capo. And now this film looks to other documentarians' work, and it is quite a single case in Italian tradition for documentaries and contemporary artworks. Well, of course, you can ask questions. Well, let's do it if you want. Otherwise, I will ask the first question to Vincenzo and Fabio. That is, how much this reference I talked about is just a name, or how much this film, and you will say something about how you got to this film, because it is the first time we introduced such a film in Venice. And if you can say something about what you did before this film, and how did you make researches for a footage film and working on images with other filmmakers who realized many films before this. Well, obviously the participation in Venice is absolutely something surprising, and well, it's not that before we didn't participate to other festivals, but there were smaller ones, and well, we did not come to this work from anything, but this work was preceded by years of experimentation. Well, also the reference to Tchaikovsky is correct, and we cannot deny this because it was a strong influence, and obviously as tradition that was very, well, a little Italian. What I was interested in for the visual part is to do a film with strictly cinematic qualities. So choosing a film that went from the internet, and the starting quality was really low. From this film, drawing all what I thought not being purely cinematic. Well, let's say cinema is quite a young art, and so it is influenced, according to me, by other arts like theater, painting, etc. So I wanted to do something that is, cinema, totally cinema, so it was was
rispetto a questo film
a reduction effect, starting from a first cinema, a first film, without all those references like a linear effect in editing. And so it was an adventure during the editing because it comes from a long path. It is a sort of research through images of this film that is called Carnival of Souls, the 60s, of the 62. It was a sort of an archaeological operation, a little bit crazy. For those who have seen the film, well, it is clear, and that's it. And I think that in the fact that you used film downloaded from internet, there is also well something generational in your work, and what is surprising in your film is that you managed to copy some kind of optical effects on the material. It seems to go out with mirrors and glasses in which you manipulate the images. Filming and the realization of the film is a mixture of these two two approaches to the images. It comes from a file downloaded from the internet that was edited digitally, but I worked manually with many crafted things, and I like mixing the two things. Well, I think that contamination between analog and digital is something very interesting, in which there is a lot to say and to experiment. I'm very interested in it. The difference with the Tchaikovsky generation is the fact that, well, for us, the lo-fi is not a problem. It is an expressive choice. And for the sound part too, well, I think that Vincenzo could say something, could say the same. Can you tell us something about the work between the image that was Fabio's work and the sound part, also in terms of the way the films works too? Well, I was interested in the fact that the complexity of our human sensibility was respected, and this is why I try to destroy barriers, and I try to open other, maybe ironical points of view. So the sound and the image dialogue, and they are used, especially sound is used as a composition, a contemporary music composition. And these two elements collaborate, and sometimes the sound is not afraid of being predominant. Otherwise, other times it is, well, less influential. The interest was to add some more sense through the sound. Well, for example, the eye has a male or a metal image. So this was the work, adding sense and create more levels, and, well, not only intellectual levels, but also something with a greater impact. So there is a first level that is stronger, and then others that we can feel and that require more visions, and they have a sensation, and that's enough for me as a result. But there are also elements from the original films, isn't it?
Certo, io come materiale ho utilizzato
Well, as a material I used the sound from the downloaded file that was very low quality, and then when with a handy recorder I recorded some daily life sounds in my environment, and then using the computer, well, we don't have extremely technological means. It is not a problem to realize this kind of work with a good quality, well, sufficient quality to be screened here. Well, this is a great work because you have to optimize all the means you have, so we worked a lot for this, but it can be done.
Yuri, questo film, come il capo l'anno scorso, come dire,
well, like il capo last year, the history of how you got here, well, it could be a new documentary film. Well, what I wanted to ask you is if you already have in your mind, if you were interested in working in this extreme contest. Well, also before Il Capo, you had the idea that Il Capo was a sort of new idea for a new work, and or was what you had during the filming of Il Capo that led you into something new of this kind for your new film? Well, I have always been interested in suburbs, and Il Capo comes from the knowledge, well, attending this working environment. And when Il Capo was created, I felt the need to go on, so I decided to realize well, a series of short films about these issues. And well, I didn't know very well where I would have gone. Well, I didn't know anything about hyperbaric chamber. I was in a harbor near to Ravenna, and I heard something about this work I was interested in, and I sat with him and I made him tell about his work, and then it was a hard job to get to work with these workers, because I didn't know them, but also because, well, it is a work for which the less you know, the best is, because it is an unknown environment to us. Well, it is risky, but well, platforms and other aspects, everything is controlled in the Mediterranean scene. Well, with what happened in Mexico, well, everything is controlled. But I remember that the first effort, the first contact I had, it was in December, and it was no. They kept saying me no, and then I found a way for the right contacts. Apart from the physical place, yes, I had this allowance for the hyperbaric chamber. Well, there is just a few things for this work, but everything, well, they are all films in which there was a fiction. I wanted to be there while they were really working. It was 140,000 euros per day. This was the cost. Well, the final part, well, they used a hammer 24 hours per day for 3 days, and the cost was 140,000 euros per day. So the tension was very high.
Immagino fosse esattamente il tipo di posto dove non era
I think
possibile
it
fare un
was
sopralluogo.
the place in which you couldn't
Immagino
go
che
before
tipo di
starting
inquadratura,
your
che tipo
work,
di
so
movimenti
you
ti sarebbero
couldn't
concessi
imagine
lì
what kind of
all'interno
images and
della camera.
framing
Cioè,
and,
quanto
well,
hai avuto modo di
how
programmare il film
much
prima, di
could
pensarlo
you
prima, e quanto hai
program
dovuto
and
comunque
imagine your film before, and how much
improvvisare
had you
per
to
quanto lo spazio te lo
improvise
concedesse, diciamo, all'ultimo momento.
thanks to the space? And, well, I had to work more for contacts and public relations, let's say public relations, and I had less work in concentrating in my work. I visited a factory that produced hyperbaric chambers, and it was not the same in which I had to go, so I understood something more. And then I met many people because I use the personal office for casting, and I found many workers. I met them, and the main character, that is called Marcello, gave me a lot of amateur material, and why were they filming this material? Well, just for fun, because they cannot use electronics in the chamber because pressure is a risk for technological devices. But well, what can they do? Well, Marcello brought an amateur camera who worked 2 months long. With this, I could understand how it works. Well, there is a Marcello who jokes with his friends. He goes to the ball and, well, and he works. And I built the structure of the film on his amateur filming. And when I came there, it was very stressing because my phonic, well, I couldn't say it that my work, my technician was blind.
Hai citato il fonico, ci sono
well,
due contributi fondamentali a livello del
there are two fundamental contributions. One was the registration of the message, and it is very fine, and also the intervention of a musician. Oh, did you already work with Mengacci? How was the relationship with Mengacci, and how, well, the plots and everything? Enrico Mengacci is a fundamental character in my cinema. He is my master. He taught me everything I know about cinema. Well, we are fine because I let him experiment many things. He is 50 years. And he has a 30 years long experience. He edited the sound for 450 films. And last year he decided to close with Rome because he said that there was no more high quality, he couldn't do what he wanted. They worked to do as less as possible, and so he stopped working. And he is working just with me because I let him experiment new sound effects. Well, in the hyperbaric chamber, he entered with a lot of microphones. He recorded 5.1 and with a system he invented. So in the chambers there were microphones. There was also bigger microphones that he could plug and on metal surfaces, and I mounted 12 lines, 12 soundtracks, and it was something heavy and complicated. It was difficult to move in there. There were 3 chambers, so there was a problem in seeing all the things, and there the sound was very important. And also, people who watched the film, they were impressed because the sound was exactly what they can hear. And then Frost, well, I wanted a soundtrack that is not a soundtrack, and a strong moment in the end for the hammering, the hammered moment. And there is always the problem with the phonician and the musician. And so, to me, it was more important. Ben Frost did something selfish, that is to put a minimal part on the cinema, and he was distracting the work of the sound technician. And in this case, we can say that I had to keep at bay the work of the sound of the music. And there are also interesting moments, because music is mixed with the sound at the moment of the wearing of the equipment, and in the end, the fact that there is this distorted sound with this, well, let's say, okay, there are lots of sort of hammer sound. Well, okay. It is something that was already existing, and he remixed it for me. Well, there is a problem when you have original music, you don't know what will be the final effect, so you have to rely on this. And it was the first time I worked with him, and I listened to many of his discs, and there was a track that was perfect, and I called him and I asked him to adapt this track for the film. The last thing, the production history of this film, you are particularly original in looking for resources and the producing resources. Well, your way starts with contemporary art. You worked with Catalan, who was involved in the production of this film, and there are also art collectors that have to do with your film. What is your relationship with Catalan for this project? Well, there are lots of things to say. I try to be. Well, everything happened after Il Capo, and the production was a bit peculiar because it is filmed in a marble cave, and well, we had private funding, and then I had to take part in important festivals. Well, I didn't know them to be important, but then I discovered it. With this curriculum, I went to Rome, and I met producers to understand. Well, when they looked at my curriculum, they thought, well, what kind of festival are that? And then when I showed the film, they told me that it was some special part of a film, so they didn't accept my proposals. Well, we were waiting for the fundings, and then I discovered that funding comes 2 or 3 years. And so, well, I'm young and I'm in Italy, so if I go away abroad, I'm old. So I have to stay in Italy because to be young, but I cannot wait for other 2 years to do a film. And so I understood I couldn't wait from that. So I have to be financed in this way. So it is a product that cannot be sold. It is, well, something really peculiar or special. I'm talking about Il Capo. I had to do 5 copies in 35 millimeters, and I tried to eliminate DVDs that were around, and then I proposed it in a gallery of art collectors. And then for this film I changed collectors into producers, so I pre-sold films, promising them, those who bought my films were the only owners of my film, and so well, these films have already been sold, so the producers in this case took a risk with me, and they had also fun because they worked with me until the end, because we didn't know if we couldn't do this film or not, so it was the way I produced the film. And the group of collectors is led by Maurizio Catana. That is, well, at the beginning he watched Il Capo, and I was surprised because he liked it. I was cooperating with his project paper. I'm realizing his video, and when I told him the history of this film, he told me, well, there was a problem. They wanted me not to enter the hyperbaric chamber, so I had to stay out and put an operator inside, special scuba driver. They told me, if you manage to go in there, I will support your production, otherwise I won't. And then I understood, well, apart from the bastardy, I understood it was the right way to go, because they made me understand that I had to make the experience and I had to go there. Well, I was really, really annoying in order to manage to this, and well, there is another history. This is another history.
Domande, curiosità?
Are there questions?
Altrimenti...
Otherwise...
prego.
Oh, yes, there is one. Just a question.
Fabio Scacchioli,
To Fabio Scacchioli and Vincenzo Core that are not, well, they already work together. And this union between sound and image comes from prior experiences in Abruzzo during the earthquake, so they could discover emotions and sounds about everything happened. So I wanted to ask how much this direct experience without external support, that was really personal experience, created the basis to reach the results of, well, the film, the short film you realized, and how was the inspiration, but how much of yourselves put in this work, and if we can consider as a prior experience in order to reach the maturity of the sound and the image you realized.
Ovviamente tutte le esperienze
of course, all prior experiences have been influential and useful, and they led to the work we presented here. And about the creation of this work for prior experiences, but I have no production experience, special production experiences. I'm a hermit, because I work alone. And, well, I think I couldn't do something different, like working in a production group,
Tutto qui.
But well, that's it.
Ovviamente tutto il lavoro sul terremoto e
The
sull'Aquila,
work
sempre
about
insomma,
l'Aquila and the earthquake.
si è trattato sempre di andare a
Well,
recuperare
it was,
pellicole, in questo
it
caso
was
private,
recovering
familiari, quindi
private
sempre un'opera sul
films.
found footage, è stato
So it is
molto
a work
importante
on
per me,
film
un
footage
arricchimento
because
anche a livello
it was an
personale, oltre
enrichment at a personal level,
che come risultato
and not only as an
espressivo, che
expressive
spero,
result
insomma,
that I think will be, well, decent.
così.
That's it.
Ok, allora io ringrazio voi per
Okay, I
l'attenzione.
thank you for your kind attention, and I thank Fabio Scacchioli, Vincenzo Cori, e Yuri Ancarani, and see you next press conference. Thank you.